All right, here's the thing. When your kid does something amazing, like maybe they finally share their toy with a sibling, and you're like, oh, wow, that was so good. But then the next minute, they're melting down over putting on their shoes. Yeah, parenting feels like this roller coaster of trying to figure out what makes behaviors stick and what makes them stop.
Right. And that's exactly why today we want to break down reinforcement versus punishment. And don't worry, we're not going to get super sciencey with it. We're just going to talk about what these things really mean in everyday life with your kids.
And before we dive in, quick reminder, this podcast is for educational purposes only and not a substitute for professional advice.
Yes. And today's podcast is brought to you by Kiwi Kids ABA, providing personalized in-home ABA therapy, parent support, and school consultation for families across Colorado. Learn more at kiwikidsaba.com.
So, reinforcement. The word sounds fancy, but really it just means something that makes a behavior more likely to happen again. Like if your kid cleans up their toys and you say, "Thanks so much for helping. Now we can play your favorite game." Bam, that's reinforcement. You gave them something positive, and now they're more likely to clean up again next time.
Exactly. And the thing is, reinforcement doesn't always have to be like a sticker chart or candy. Sometimes it's just you noticing them, giving them attention. Kids soak that up, right? Even a high five or a nice job can make a big difference.
Yeah, and here's a super practical tip for parents. Try catching your child being good even for small things. Like if they're sitting quietly for a few minutes, say something like, "I love how calm you're sitting right now." It seems small, but those little reinforcements build up over time. And there's actually two main types of reinforcement. First, positive reinforcement, which is adding something good, like a hug, a treat, more playtime. Then there's negative reinforcement, and this one trips people up because it doesn't mean bad. It just means taking away something your child doesn't like. So let's say your kid does their homework right away, and you say, "Okay, now you don't have to do that extra worksheet." That's negative reinforcement. You removed something they didn't want, and that makes the good behavior more likely in the future. Oh, that's a good one. And I think parents use that without even realizing it. Like, "Hey, if you get your shoes on quickly, we don't have to rush." Bam, that's negative reinforcement working right there.
Now let's flip it and talk about punishment. So punishment is anything that makes a behavior less likely to happen again. But here's the thing. When most people hear punishment, they think of yelling or timeouts. And yeah, that can be part of it, but it's bigger than that.
Right. So positive punishment is adding something your kid doesn't like maybe they're roughhousing and they get an extra chore. Negative punishment is taking away something they do like, say losing screen time because they broke a rule. Both of those are punishments because they make the behavior less likely to happen in the future. Exactly. But, and this is huge for parents, punishment usually only stops a behavior in the moment. It doesn't teach what to do instead. Reinforcement, on the other hand, teaches and builds up skills. Yes, and that's why in ABA we always lean more on reinforcement, because kids learn faster and feel better when we're showing them what we do want instead of only pointing out what we don't want. So for parents listening, here's one easy shift you can make. Next time your child does something challenging, pause and ask yourself, what's the behavior I want to see instead? Then, when you do see that positive behavior, reinforce it right away. Like if your child usually shouts for your attention, but this time they come up and tap you on the shoulder, praise that. "Thanks for asking so nicely. I love that." The more you reinforce the good stuff, the less you'll see of the stuff you don't want.
Totally. And you don't have to be perfect with this. Even catching those little wins a few times a day can make a big difference over time.
So, to wrap this up, reinforcement is about building up the behaviors you want to see more often, and punishment is about reducing the behaviors you don't want. Both can work, but reinforcement is usually more effective and way more positive for kids and parents.
And we'll keep saying it. Celebrate the small wins. Even tiny moments of progress matter.
Thanks for listening to the Kiwi Nest by Kiwi Kids. Remember, the information shared here is for educational and informational purposes only. It should not be taken as medical, behavioral, or therapeutic advice for your child. Every child is unique, so please consult with a licensed professional or your healthcare provider for guidance tailored to your family's needs. The views expressed in this podcast are those of the hosts and guests and do not replace individualized care.
We're so glad you joined us today. If you found this helpful, stick around. We've got more practical tips and real talk coming up in future episodes.
See you next time on the Kiwi Nest. Thank you.